So today, this topic which we are going to talk about is not to assess anyone, to treat anyone, or to diagnose anyone. However, it's a topic which can help you and your loved ones improve your well-being. And by well-being, I mean things like relationships. Sometimes our relationships suffer not because people don't have sufficient information, or people don't have resources. Relationships suffer because people don't know how to apply knowledge. And I'm serious about this. People have known things for years and years and years, and they stay in the knowing department. So I'm here to let you know that myself, as your presenter today, I want to help you shift from being a knowledge holder to someone who's in action. Because what you hear today are things you've heard. Some of you have heard these things a long time, even before I was born. I'm 53 years old, and I know some people who are in their 70s who either come to my practice or interact with me who are like, oh, I never knew I could feel better about me. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. So if at any point you forget anything I say today, I want you to say, okay, so how can I take this knowledge which I've heard, or I've heard for a long time, and translate it into practice? What I believe is missing in the world is not so much knowledge, because if you go to the www.com, the World Wide Web, and you type in self-esteem boosters or self-esteem whatever, you get a million hits of websites which are broadcasting the same thing. So to me, what's missing is not the knowledge. What's missing are the doers. And in this very room, there's a lot of doers. So let's do it. So we know by definition that self-esteem is all about the overall well-being, how one feels about themselves, their views, how they feel accomplished, how they feel disappointed, how they feel let down, how they feel they're lacking. That's how I can describe it. So there's a lot of factors which affect this self-esteem, which can range from where you were raised, how you were raised, your childhood traumas, which we've talked about time and time again, as well as the support you get. Because a baby is not born with a self-esteem. The baby doesn't even know their head from their toes. They learn as they grow, beginning with sucking their toes, sucking their thumbs, kicking, fighting, screaming, crying all the time, or smiling all the time, or feeding all the time, depending on the type of baby one is. And so environment has a lot to do with these things. So I want you, if you're one of those people who grew up in a place where you didn't get the support you needed, I want you to give yourself credit and say, I'm here now. I can start here. And I say this with passion because I've shared my story on how when I was 7 years old, my father held me upside down, wanted to throw me in the river and drown me, but he didn't. It's something which bothered me for a long time, that I was an unwanted child, but I realized he's only one out of a billion people in the world. If he doesn't want me, somebody else wants me. So it's an attitude I developed at a very young age. And I said, listen, my roots of resilience are deeper than my conflict and setbacks and challenges and lack of this and lack of that. So I'm one of those people who had to fight to make sure that my self-esteem is high. And it is high. Because I realized that if it was going to depend on my father and my parents and those around me, I would just continue to be the bottom of the barrel. So here we go. Self-esteem can be minimum, low, medium, high, or maximum. Whichever one you want to rate yourself, I'll provide you with a link at the end on where you can take the self-esteem test and have access to resources. But I want you to know this. You're here now. There are many ways you can boost your self-esteem. And it's important that you find the one which works for you, okay? If you spend your time looking on what else and what if and what wasn't, you may never develop this self-esteem. You may never boost it. So I want you, as we go through this presentation, to say, oh, that sounds like a starting point for me, because the brain has a lot to do with it. I've spoken about neuroplasticity. The brain is pliable. It's like Play-Doh. You can mold it. It's like clay. Every day, every season, that brain is getting better or worse, depending on what the person is doing with their brain. So the first step is believe. Just believe. Believe you were created by God in his own image with full potential to be connected to the greater resource of all resources, who's God. In this very room, at this very moment, you can believe. Whether you want to claim scripture, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, that's you. That before you were born, the hairs of your head are numbered. Before you were born, God knew you. That's you. You are free to do whatever you want to do, because that's what the word teaches. But I can rest assure you, if you choose to believe that you're a royal priesthood, part of a holy nation, a person who's set apart, a person who's fearfully and wonderfully made, that's the first step. To me, it doesn't matter what the world teaches. You have to believe in someone, in something. Believe in God and believe in yourself. Believe in those who mean good for you, and believe in the process and believe in the resources. That's the first step with everything. Believe. If you are an educator like Vida, you have to believe that your students trust you. And if your students don't trust you, then you'll need to develop that process of building trust. And we can talk about that another time. And then this is given. You take time. You took time to be here today. You need to take time to recognize the things that you are good at. And these things you have achieved. Listen, if anything, you're good at coming to the Zoom sessions. You're here. If anything, you're a good listener. You're listening to the sound of my voice. If anything, you're taking notes. You're a note taker. If anything, you share with your friends what you have learned. If anything, you invited your friend to this session. You see, there's some good in everybody. It's up to us to shift our minds from focusing on that which is good or that which is not good. Those things which can serve us or those things which cannot serve us. I can speak for me. It wouldn't matter to me if a room is 2 people, 1 person. I'm doing what I go there for. And I'll do it with every ounce of energy, with sincerity, with honesty, and complete it, because that is me. Because I'm not about numbers. We've all been socialized to believe that if you're in a Zoom session and there's 300 people, there's something good in it. If you read something and it is 200 reviews, it means something. The mind is now thinking like that with everything. So I want to take note. Find time in your day to say, this is what I have done well. I use sometimes the 3 things method at the end of each day. What went well today? What went on well today? And what did I do to make it happen? So for all of you who are listening to this recording or who are attending live, you did something good today. You showed up, you clicked, and you heard my voice. That's good. If you find yourself, you're struggling with self-esteem, you got to move on to this next step. Focus. To boost your self-esteem, you need to focus on your strength and your accomplishments, no matter how small they are. Friends of mine, I'm going to share something with you. And for females, I apologize if this is offensive, but it's reality. I've talked to a lot of single men and married men personally. Most of them don't care much for the makeup and the fake hair. They don't. They just don't say it because they don't want to offend the females around them, their sisters, their mothers, their girlfriends, their future wives and their daughters. They just won't say anything. And why am I saying this? I have learned and realized that a lot of females, I can speak for females because I'm one, our focus is more on the outside. It's like a band-aid, all right? You have 10 wigs in the closet. Hey, you got your own hair. Wear it wisely. Wear it well. I wear my own hair. My hair is locked. I don't have a wig. I don't have a perm. I don't have human hair. Human hair except my human hair. So I'm just giving you this as an example. For some reason, society has made us believe that our hair should be longer, straighter, and colored blue or purple or red. There's nothing wrong with that. However, if this does not help you accomplish your goals, then perhaps you focused on the wrong thing. So I always tell people this: be willing to change your lenses. Cameras, which take very good pictures, sometimes come with different lenses to focus. You have to switch for long distance, for short distance, for wide width. Now with smart objects and smartphones and smart cameras, it's auto now. But prior to this, we had to change. So don't lose focus on who you are. Don't let media and modernization change who you are. Focus on your strength and your accomplishment. You were born, you are alive. You can impact the world, and together we can do it. The next step is celebrate. Celebrate who you are. Celebrate success, no matter how small. Celebrate your friendships. Celebrate the moments you have with those around you. Celebrate what you've done every day. Celebrate. There's a reason why the children of Israel were told by God that they had to have these memorials and all these holidays, which now most people refer to as Jewish holidays, because God knew they would forget. And I say this with passion because I know of people, I don't know if you know them, who got married maybe 40, 60, 70 years ago. They had a beautiful wedding. They had beautiful pictures on the wall. They exchanged their vows and they stopped celebrating. And be shocked at how many people at the age of 70 are saying, I want a divorce. I'm like, where are you going? You're married 60 years already. But this is what I'm talking about. It's not enough just to celebrate. You have to remember. You have to remember who you are. To boost your self-esteem, you need to focus on the positive thinking, and you need the reminders. Okay. The reminder that you're beautiful is not the amount of wigs you have in your closet. No. The reminder that you're beautiful is because you were created unique and you have beauty in you. You know, I'm shocked at how many people lighten their skin, right? Put on boobs, breasts, extra breasts, and buttocks. You can Google how many young ladies have lost their lives because they had a butt lift. They wanted their buttocks to go up or their breasts to go up. And they die every year, leaving their families in misery. People have their lips injected so they can perk up. And I'm thinking, we are forgetting that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. I don't have anything against those people, against such practices, but I have to say, it's where the masses are now being misled because what they see, they want. So you as an individual, you have to remember to boost your own self-esteem. Focus on your thinking. Your thinking, okay? I am going to speak to you from a convicted point of view here. I haven't watched television for over 20 years, meaning I don't sit in front of the television and watch a program day after day. I don't have television live in my home. There's a big television screen here. Some people watch it when they show up, but personally, I don't. And I'll tell you my reasons. When I was 38 years old, I realized a lot of people around me who were in their 50s and 60s, they thought they were dying and they're old and they're drinkers and they're all that. And I'm trying to understand why. Among of the list of the things is that I realized they talk about the misery of days of our lives or all these other movies, Keeping Up Appearance, whatever movie they watch. I'm just using names so some of you can relate. And I realized something, that their conversation with me centered around things which were not so positive. And I realized that Their eating habits, they eat according to what television promotes. Their spending habits according to what the television promotes. Their living habits, the same thing. So I had to remind myself that I'm not defined by what's around me. And I'm also not defined by what happened to me. I'm defined by what I do. My choices is what leads me to the next level. So for some people who are struggling with self-esteem, a positive self-esteem or high self-esteem, you need to learn to reduce negative thoughts. It's a process. Pay attention to your inner dialogue and be aware of the negative thoughts that may arise. It can be something as simple as, oh, I haven't watched my favorite show. You haven't watched your favorite show. Are you missing something? Perhaps you're not missing something. But once you tell your brain you haven't done something, it's like it's important. So subconsciously, you create this at the shelf, which needs to be filled with an activity like doing your favorite thing. So you need to pay attention to you as an individual. So I spent a lot of time with students before I retired as a professor in 2021. And I had students who thought they would never learn. And I realized that it had to do with their thinking. They're like, oh, I'll never get it. I'm like, why do you say that? What do you spend most of your time doing? I'm here to teach you. I'm here to teach you how to learn, first of all, and how to focus on your learning. And so I know that this works. So pay attention to what you tell yourself when you look in the mirror, when you wake up in the morning. Don't look in the mirror and say, oh, my hair looks terrible. No, you got hair on your head. That's what I mean, an example. So once you reduce these negative thoughts, you have to learn to replace. It's not sufficient to believe. It's not sufficient to focus. It's not sufficient to remember and also to think positively, because things always happen. Information comes to us through our eyes, our ears, our sense of taste, our sense of touch. The five senses, and perhaps the sixth sense, which other people claim to have, which is intuitive, is always bombarded. The senses are bombarded with information. Okay? So it's not easy to just stay positive, because somebody is going to show up or something is going to happen, and it's in your environment, or your stomach is going to hurt, or you're going to get a headache, or you have a child who's vomiting, or you have someone who gives you a bad review because you did something. So when such happens, you think of that. It's normal to think negative thoughts. If somebody right now say, I don't like what you're saying, I will say, well, I know they don't like what they say. I acknowledge that as a thought, because I can't deny it that somebody doesn't like it. But I'll replace it quickly and say, I'm glad they say that. Let me find out from them how I can make this session meaningful to them. You see what I'm saying? So it's not bothering me that you don't like what I said. So I take responsibility to say, okay, how best can I help you understand or benefit from this? So that's what I mean by replacing. So if for instance, if you're one of those people who like to walk outside, but you don't like it when it rains, you might say, well, when it rains, I don't like to walk outside. That's one way of looking at it. Or you can say, after the rain, there are negatively charged ions in the environment and there's benefits. I'll go out there and stand and breathe that fresh air. You just replaced. So next time it's raining, it's not an issue. Because I'll tell you this, scientifically, it makes sense. Biblically, it makes sense, because Paul wrote, by beholding, we become changed. The Bible says that over and over and over. And scientifically, when you look at something, the chemicals are released in your brain to support that, or to encourage that or discourage that, depending on what it is. So for positive minds to be part of the process of boosting your self-esteem, you need to have this technique of replacing, right? Let's say you're in a relationship and your boyfriend says, I don't like the way you look today. Don't be mad at them. Just say, I'm glad you told me. I looked myself in the mirror and I saw myself looking good. And you know, they'll think, is that their place to tell you these things? And they'll take it back and say, I'm sorry, I took it back. I shouldn't have said that. It works. I've done it for years. It works for me. It will work for you. Learn to replace not just your thoughts, but the thoughts you think against things which happen in your life, right? There are benefits to replacing. When you start replacing, this will help you to focus on the good things in your life and increase your self-esteem. Self-care becomes a priority because taking charge of your brain, your mind, your thoughts is self-care. And this is a necessity and not a luxury. Some people think I'll do it when I'm 50. Hey, I've seen people in their 50s falling apart. Some people think I'll do it when I'm 80. I have clients who are 80 years old who are like, this is my only chance. And I'm like, for sure it is. Where have you been? They're like, I didn't realize I had to take charge of me. And that's why I do what I do every day, so I can help people like you do it sooner. Don't wait until you're 90, because there are other things now. You can't move, you can't think quickly. You can still do it, but it is slower pace. So the seventh and last point is practice self-care. It is important to practice self-care. Take time to do things that make you feel good and help you lift your spirits. And I'm not saying about eating ice cream and cake and stuff like that. No, I'm talking about sleep. You can meditate on scripture. You can get exercise. You can read a book. You can eat healthy and drink water. So for some of you, you sleep late. We've talked about this already. We talked about this 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Some people are like this. They prefer the way they know. But I'm here to tell you, if what you've been doing all along is not working, it's time to change your ways and get good results, because you're here. Every single one of us is created with potential for greatness, with potential to live our best lives. Unfortunately, obstacles come our way at some point. Somebody failed to tell us at a young age, you're a good person, you look good, and encourage us. And then we live life looking for that. And then when that doesn't come, we get stuck. So this is the starting point. Create a self-care checklist and do something. We talked about the new start a few weeks ago. That recording is available through our group. If anybody wants it, text in the group and I'll be happy to forward it to you personally. It's important that we start somewhere. So here we go. At some point, you have to think, where am I? Who am I? I'm me. I'm Vida. I'm Yanette. Where am I? Am I at the minimum, low, medium, high, or maximum? I'll provide you with the assessment too for those of you who have interests. I'll give you the link so you can do that. And I'll be providing you with some tips based on your personal needs as much as I can to help you with this journey. Because I don't believe we should talk about something and leave it there. I believe we should take it to the next level and keep on pressing, right? So this is where the connection is between this topic and psychotherapy. A low self-esteem can lead to feelings of depression, anxiety, and mental health issues. This might not be for you, but it might be for somebody who's in your home, in your environment, someone you can relate to, you love very much so, but because you know how they feel about themselves, they end up feeling depressed, they're anxious, and they have some issues with their mental health. So I'll give you some tips and ideas on how to boost your self-esteem and feel good, feel more confident. For most people, this is the opportunity. I came across this book by D.R. Fraser, somebody I relate to very well, where he said, tell teens these things for empowerment. Initially, when I read this book, I'll be honest with you, I said it was written by I said it was written by the military way, because he was in the service, in the Air Force. And he said, why'd you say that? I said, it's just right to the point. He said, of course, I'm not here to butter it up. I'm just here to tell it as it is. So later on, I began to think. I said, wait a minute. There is a reason why he wrote this book. Tell teens these things. And it was so direct. So I thought about those teens who didn't have the right parents, or who didn't have their parents present, who were raised by their grandmothers or their aunts, or who were adopted, or were in homeless shelters, or who were in homes where relationships were broken. And I said, this book is going to help someone who perhaps missed the opportunity of hearing this while they were in their teens. So in the next few slides, I'm going to share with you some of the quotes from D.R. Frazier. It's on Amazon. I don't know how much it is, but if somebody really needs to get the resource for a one-time fee, a donation, I'll make it available as a PDF file to you, with his permission, of course. So the interesting thing is that when we grow up, some people are bullied, some people are neglected, some people are tortured, some people are abused. It's a fact. It is hard to find your path, because if you, like me, who grew up in the era where if you went to a boarding school or mission school or any public school, you were bullied by somebody, because when you show up, they always want you to bow to them because they're senior and stuff like that. And it could be you. I had those experiences. At some point, I was even in a physical fight. I was attacked and I had to fight back, and I fainted because somebody knocked me on my head hard, and I didn't know how to fight because I never fought before. But I remember the day very well, because I went home with a bump on my head, and my dad asked me what it was, and I said somebody hit me with a stone, because if I had said somebody fought me, I would have been kicked harder. But I remember those days. So I'm going to say this. My encouragement to you is embrace your differences and live your life. Great ideas come from people who see things differently. They think differently. I'm one of those people. Had I not changed how I think and how I see things, I would never have made it to college. I would never had a doctoral degree. I would never do what I do every day. I learned from people who think differently. Even up to yesterday, I was saying something to someone. I said, you look at things differently. They sure do. They see what I don't see. It was during a game of Scrabble, I realized this, because the word they see, I'm not seeing it. I see things backwards, and some people see things forward. So I want you to go back to your homes, to your community, to your workplace, and ask the person who sees you differently and think differently about you. Don't take it in a negative way. Perhaps that person is giving you the cue of where you need to start, because self-esteem is affected by negativity, and negativity enter our thoughts whether we like it or not. And it's a distraction which keeps us from achieving our goals. So if someone, for instance, is always saying, oh, I don't like your shoes or your big feet, right? You know you have big feet, and every time you look at your feet, they're big. It's just an example. You can look at it differently and say, when it's time to run, these big feet will carry me. And say, thank you for pointing that out. I've always known I had big feet, and I appreciate my feet, because I think even when I'm old, they'll still be carrying me. I'm saying this because not only did D.R. Frazier wrote this, but it's true. How many times have you tried to do something and someone shows up and say, oh, you're going to do that again? And then you drop it. That's the time you say, yes, I'm going to do this again. Help me, please. Please support me. I'm on a journey the third time. This time I'm going to make it right because you are there for me. Don't lie to yourself about who you are. Love yourself and be yourself. It's okay to cry when you want to cry. It's okay to say I'm weak, but I want to be strong. But just don't stay there. And also, you want to be comfortable with being who you are in life. We're all different. Not anyone speaks like me out there and lives the life I live. And I like it, because when I meet them, I'm like, tell me more about yourself. Most of the time I listen to people more than I talk about myself, because I'm like, tell me more, because I realize that there's a lot of people like that having that problem. So I'm like, okay, so this is how you think. I understand. And I kind of think differently. So you need to be comfortable to where it's okay for people to shut their doors. It's okay for people to say no. It's okay for people to say you're not good enough. I've been there. I've been there. I can write a book about my life and my journey, my professional journey, of when I showed up in a facility and the patients would think I'm there to clean their room or to bring their food, just because they were so used to seeing Black people cleaning the facility and feeding them. And so I've been in there in a clinic where they think I'm the aide when I'm actually in charge of the clinic. And I had to remind them, if you're uncomfortable with me treating you, you could go to the next place. And some have left and come back looking for me. So you will never grow to be the best person you can be by surrounding yourself with people who agree with everything you do or say. I've learned from some of the people who disagree with me. At one point, I had a session which I was doing. It was several seniors, probably over 200, 300 people. And I decided I want to hear from every single one of them how they feel about my presentation. I did a great presentation. I knocked it. And I had a survey on paper. So while I was doing the presentation, I had a couple questions in a space for them to put their comments. And I'll never forget this. And I talked about my journey on how I had lost 120 pounds in the presentation. And I weigh less because I was over 335 pounds at some point. And one lady, everybody else said this was a star presentation, the best I've been. I want to hear her again. And I come across this one lady, and I actually saw where she was sitting. And at the end, she kind of handed me the paper and she walked away without smiling. When everybody else was cheering me up and wanted to shake my hand, want a picture with me. And this lady just walked out and gave, and I remember this very well. And her comment is, this could have been a better presentation had she told us how she did it. And she gave me a 1 out of 10. The first thought which came to my mind is, unfortunately, she's not a happy person. That's how I looked at it initially. See, she's not a happy person. Why would she give me a 1? But as you all know, we all mature. Then I thought, that's a good thing she said that. Because I didn't tell them how I did it. And I didn't think that was what my session was about. But I happened to have shared my story in the middle of a session. And, you do this all the time. You share your story and you're not thinking. And then I learned from it. I said, perhaps if I'm going to help people in future, I need to start telling them how to do it. And I am here to tell you that I don't always talk about content. I talk to people about how to do things. And that's what sets me apart. So from that one person who did not agree with me and say the right thing on paper, I have learned so much. I've realized that information is abundant. It's how to do it, which is lacking. So I just want to encourage you that you embrace those who are different from you, who say the very thing you don't want to hear, and look at it differently and say, you're telling me this, perhaps my purpose is to improve on what I do best, or my purpose is to meet your needs. Friends of mine, we are created to serve. It's in the serving that we experience our purpose. Because if there was nobody to serve, how can we have a purpose? If you all were not in this room, how could I even be talking to anyone? So I want you to be comfortable with being who you are in life. We all have differences in some way. That's what D.R. Fraser wrote, and I'm sending this message to you as well. At the end of the day, create goals and have expectations in order to strive towards new levels in your life. Let every expectation be your own. Set your own pace. You don't have to look beautiful for the next man. You have to look beautiful for you, okay? I learned this at a very young age. I realized a lot of people, skin deteriorates very quickly. They get wrinkles by the time they're 45, 50. And I said, I'm not going to be one of those people. So I've never owned makeup kit, and I don't even know. I do put, lip gloss once in a while because I realized my own expectation is to have healthy skin. So whether I put olive oil on my skin or almond oil or whatever oil I get, that's what I'm doing. I'm not the clinic type of girl who does scrubs and buffers and stuff and, neutralizers. I don't know how to do those things because I made my own expectation that in my senior years, my skin will be healthy and glowing. And that's my purpose. And that's my intent. So many people have similar qualities, but it is the uniqueness in how we do things differently that sets us apart. If you were to take a fingerprint today of your thumb, your fingerprint was created with love from God, and it's unique. There's no one who can fit your shoes or tell you how to walk in your shoes. So therefore, I want to urge you, based on D.R. Fraser's writing, move forward. Moving forward, knowing where you are headed can be rewarding. If you don't know where you are headed, it's a waste of energy. You need to be clear in your direction. You need to make a decision. Do I stay where I am, or do I take the next step? I felt this way for a long time. Do I stay there? So I've created a link for you, which will take you to the destination file, which I don't know if it's showing on my screen. In this file, I created a poem. It might not open right now. I created a poem for you, which I'm going to stop sharing and then I'll read it. I created a poem for you, which might be helpful to someone here today to recognize that you're not alone in this journey. You're not. You're not the first person and you're not the last person to struggle with self-esteem. The good thing is you're at the right place where you can start somewhere. And when you start somewhere, don't stop. That's the key. Most people start and stop. And I've seen this in my own life. I've seen clients who've been going for services, whether it's counseling or physical therapy or nutritional classes or whatever sessions they go to. Different people go to different sessions. I've seen people do it for a lifetime. And I want you to consider this. Join me. Join me on this journey. Join me on this journey of never turning back. Had I stayed where I was at the age of 7, experiencing what I experienced with my own father not loving me and not wanting me, I would have been one of those girls who would have done things which don't make sense. But God saw it fit that He helps my brain to shift. So I live this life today where I shift because I know there's only one me. I don't have a twin and I'll never have a twin. There's nobody out there who thinks like me. There's nobody out there who thinks like you. You are so special in many ways that if you embrace where you are today and accept your strengths and your weaknesses, and you take them one at a time, one day at a time, there's 365 days in a year. You don't have 365 problems. And if they are, then you have a day for each one to solve. So I'm just here to encourage you all and tell you this, that if there's a moment in life, a place where we all have to have a healthy self-esteem, it doesn't have to be high or low, healthy, which means you can self-assess and acknowledge your weaknesses and create balance and make your best out of your day. The moment is now. Calamities surround us from everywhere. For those of you who live in America or other countries, you know that some of our banks here have failed. They stop now that banks are limiting giving money out. So money doesn't do it. Do you realize that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you are, what you have. When you look in the mirror, you just see you. Do you also realize that our legacy is between the time we're born to the time we die? And anything else we have, we cannot take anyway. So don't let material things stand in the way of your self-esteem. Do your own hair if you have to. Do your own nails if you have to. Bite them if you need to. Please don't spend so much time focusing on what you don't have. Focus on what you have. Well, I'm Dr. Stella. I lend my mic here because I know there are questions out there for me. I'll stop the recording so you can feel comfortable to ask me questions. Thank you.